I don't really know how to process this. Over the course of our 5-month relationship, Jane, 23 years old, has mentioned a couple of times in passing that she has previous trauma. She has never gone into specifics or gone into detail. She's a songwriter, and a couple of her songs have themes of domestic abuse, sexual attack. So I have gotten an idea as to maybe what kind of trauma she's referring to. I do know she's been going to therapy for the last 3 years. I have never pried, as she has always been super happy, charismatic, personable, and optimistic. She is quite literally a ray of sunshine. Jane and I started out as friends with benefits, and our intimacy life was amazing. We had rough intimacy. I would talk dirty to her, and we'd have intimacy all the time. She seemed to also be into degradation, asking me to call her an intimacy lover, etc. She never had an orgasm, and I always asked her what I could do differently, or if there were different things we could try. She told me she can only get off without a vibrator, and she's never orgasmed with another person before. She told me she has no interest in bringing in a vibrator unless she's in a relationship. She was an amazing intimacy partner, always going out of her way to completely satisfy me. I felt bad I wasn't doing the same for her, but she assured me that making me happy made her happy. Fast forward 2 months, we're dating. It's been the best relationship I've ever had so far. The only difference is, ever since we entered into a romantic relationship, her intimacy demeanor has changed. She asked that we take a step back from our intimacy relationship. When we do have intimacy, she asks me to move a lot slower and touch her a lot more gently. She asked me to stop talking dirty and calling her names during intimacy. I, of course, complied. I want her to feel comfortable and happy. One time during intimacy, she asked me if I thought she was pretty. I said, of course, she was beautiful. I thought I saw her tear up, but when I asked if she was okay, she said she was completely fine. Recently, she said she was ready to use her vibrator/orgasm in front of me. On the night in question, before we started, she told me that since she's never orgasmed in front of anyone, she may be a little emotional afterwards. That turned out to be a huge understatement. At first, things are going great. I'm really gentle with her. She orgasms in front of me for the first time, and it's the hottest thing ever. Then she immediately started uncontrollably sobbing, like she curled up into a ball and started wailing. I tried to hold her, but she wouldn't let me. She got dressed immediately and drove home without talking to me. I'm very confused, and I don't know if I should reach out to her or give her space. How should I proceed? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. The healing process for intimacy. Intimacy is often bumpy. When you see her again, in an intimate setting, tell her exactly what you just told us, that seeing her orgasm was extremely hot to you, and that while you'd love to integrate it into your bedroom routine, you completely understand if she isn't ready yet. It sounds like this gentle intimacy may be new for her, and the experiences are likely overwhelming. You're doing really well. When she leaves like this or denies intimacy in the aftermath, make sure you send messages that tell her that you aren't upset with her leaving/understanding why it happened and would love to see her again. Keep it up, OP. Comment 2. From the perspective of someone who's cried before after having extreme trauma around it, sometimes when you finally are able to relax and just enjoy yourself and be vulnerable with someone, sometimes it sparks something in you that makes you emotional. Let her have some time, and when she's ready, have a proper conversation and reassure her that you're not weirded out. You seem like a good dude, OP. Hope the best for you and your girlfriend. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I'm back with an update, and let me tell you, it's been a wild ride. After Jane left that night, I was at a loss. I gave her space for a day, but then I reached out to make sure she was okay. She replied with a simple, "I'm fine," but I could tell something was off. We agreed to meet up and talk. When we sat down together, the air was heavy with unspoken words. Jane took a deep breath and started to unravel her past, a past that was intertwined with our present in ways I hadn't imagined. She confessed that her ex, who was also her first love, had been emotionally and physically hurtful. The trauma from that relationship was something she was still working through in therapy. I listened, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. I had no idea the depth of her pain. She explained that the rough intimacy and degradation we engaged in at the beginning of our relationship was a way for her to feel in control of a situation that once made her feel powerless. But as her feelings for me grew, those acts started to bring back painful memories instead of empowerment. The night she orgasmed in front of me, it wasn't just the physical release that overwhelmed her. It was the realization that she was finally with someone who cared for her well-being, and it broke down walls she had built up for years. We decided to take a break from the physical side of our relationship and focus on emotional intimacy. It was tough, not gonna lie. I missed her touch, and I could tell she missed mine, but we both knew it was necessary. A week into this new phase, I got a text from Jane's ex. He had somehow gotten my number and was spewing threats, saying he knew Jane was with someone new and that he wanted her back. My blood boiled. I wanted to protect Jane, but I also didn't want to make things worse. I showed Jane the messages, and she was visibly shaken. She decided it was time to confront her past. She went to the police and filed a report against her ex for the abuse. It was a huge step for her, and I was proud, but it also meant reliving her trauma. The next few days were tense. Jane was dealing with the legal process, and I was there for her every step of the way. But the stress was taking its toll on our relationship. We were both exhausted, emotionally drained. Then came the twist that knocked the wind out of me. Jane's ex reached out again, this time with an apology. He claimed he had been in therapy and was trying to make amends for his past actions. Jane was torn. Part of her wanted to believe he had changed, but another part was skeptical. She decided to meet him in a public place to talk, with me waiting nearby. I watched from a distance as they talked. I saw the way he looked at her, with a mix of regret and longing. It was clear he still had feelings for her. After the meeting, Jane was quiet. She told me he seemed sincere, but she didn't know what to think. I could tell she was conflicted, and it hurt to see her like that. We went back to her place, and for the first time in a week, we made love. It was slow, tender, and full of emotion. But afterward, as we lay there, Jane whispered that she needed time to figure things out on her own. She needed to heal, and she wasn't sure if she could do that while being with me. I was heartbroken, but I understood. I told her I'd give her all the time she needed. So here I am, writing this update, not knowing where Jane and I stand. She's taking the time to work on herself, and I'm giving her the space she needs. Even though it feels like a part of me is missing without her, it's a bittersweet feeling, knowing that she's growing stronger each day, but also realizing that our future together is uncertain. I'm hopeful, though, that whatever happens, we'll both come out of this stronger. Boyfriend defends sketchy $400 car charge, so I expose their scam. He's shocked, but our trust, it's on thin ice. I just had the most frustrating moment with my boyfriend of 3 years. So much so that I am reconsidering the relationship as a whole. He just doesn't seem to understand why what he said was wrong. Boyfriend, 37-year-old male, is very passionate about cars and takes his cars to a very specific dealership. I, meanwhile, know almost nothing about cars besides basic maintenance. I used to get my oil changed regularly at a chain oil place, which my boyfriend found out about and told me why they were so bad. Something about their lifts can damage the frame, and told me to stop going there and instead start doing my maintenance at the dealership where he takes his cars. Time for an oil change. I brought it to his recommended dealership, and long story short, they tried to charge me $300 for the oil change and gave me a checklist of urgent things I needed done to my car: new spark plugs, all new tires, all new brake pads and rotors, all new filters, which totaled over $2,000. I negotiated at the payment window for a better deal on the oil change because I was used to paying more, like $50. But they explained how my car needed a special type of filter, and they used all synthetic oil, and that the $300 was correct. I got home, told my boyfriend what they charged me, and showed him the list of repairs they suggested I come back for. He said that was insane and that his oil changes there were $40. We compared my bill to his, and they used the same amount of oil and the same number of hours of labor. It's just his labor per hour was $50, and mine was $400. He also checked my tires, brakes, and spark plugs and said none of them needed replacing. I was so pissed. I told him I suspected they were overcharging me based on the fact that I'm a woman. He replied, "I don't think that's the case. It's just a stupidity tax. They saw that you didn't know anything about cars and charged you accordingly." I told him I'm never taking my car there again and urged him to do the same. But he said no, that I could do whatever I wanted, but that he planned to continue taking all his cars there. This led to an argument. I asked if he was okay supporting a business that took advantage of people. He said it didn't matter to him since he was car smart and knew enough not to be ripped off. I told him that I felt insulted that he indirectly called me stupid, and his reply was, "Well, do you know anything about cars?" "No, so you kind of are stupid in terms of cars. You can fix that by learning more about cars." I feel insulted that he called me stupid and upset that he took the side of the dealership, upset that he won't admit that this was a sexist move, and just overall I hated his response. How do I navigate this? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So it's the car stupidity tax? Okay, you're so knowledgeable about cars, let's go there together right now, and you can persuade them into charging me the correct price and get them to refund me the difference. Edit. Something unfortunate happened to you, and his response was to belittle you. You were ignorant. You need me. That's a form of abuse. Comment 2. So he insulted you, told you that the dealership that greatly overcharged you was right, and that you deserve it. He sounds very loving. I'd leave him for insulting me. Tell him you're done being foolish, and as your first official act as an intelligent person is to dump him. Now, for the update. Hey everyone. It's been 2 weeks since I posted about the frustrating moment with my boyfriend and the car dealership debacle. I've got an update for you all, and let me tell you, it's been a rough ride. After our argument, things between my boyfriend and me were tense. We've been together for 3 years, and I've always known him to be a bit stubborn, especially when it comes to his passions, like cars. But I never thought he'd dismiss my feelings so easily. I decided to give him some space to think about what he said and how it affected me. A few days later, he came to me, seemingly ready to talk. He admitted that he had been inconsiderate and apologized for calling me stupid. It was a step in the right direction, but I needed more than just an apology. I needed him to understand why I felt taken advantage of by the dealership and why his continued patronage was a problem for me. We decided to do some digging into the dealership's practices. My boyfriend, being the car enthusiast he is, had connections with some of the mechanics there. He started asking around, and what he found out was shocking. It turned out that the dealership had a history of overcharging customers who they thought were less knowledgeable about cars. And yes, most of those customers were women. My boyfriend was floored. He had been going to this dealership for years and had built a rapport with them. To learn that they were engaging in such unethical behavior was a blow to him. He felt betrayed, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. On one hand, he had trusted these people with his prized vehicles, and on the other, he couldn't ignore their dishonesty. The next time he needed an oil change, he went back to the dealership, but this time, he confronted them about the discrepancies in pricing. The confrontation was intense. Voices were raised, and my boyfriend demanded explanations. The manager tried to brush it off as a misunderstanding, but my boyfriend wasn't having it. He knew too much now. In the end, my boyfriend walked out of there, vowing never to return. He told me he couldn't in good conscience support a business that took advantage of people, especially when one of those people was someone he cared about. It was a moment of growth for him, and I was proud to see him stand up for what was right. But the story doesn't end there. Remember the list of repairs they suggested for my car? Well, my boyfriend insisted on checking everything himself. He's always been handy with tools, and I've seen him fix up his own cars countless times. As he went through the list, he found that while my brakes were indeed fine, my tires were getting worn out. It wasn't urgent, but they would need replacing soon. We spent a weekend shopping for tires, comparing prices, and learning about the different types. It was actually kind of fun, and I appreciated him taking the time to educate me without making me feel inferior. We found a great deal on a set of tires, and he even taught me how to change a tire myself. It was empowering, and I felt a little less stupid about cars. However, the bittersweet moment came when we were putting on the new tires. As we worked together, my boyfriend became quiet, and I could tell something was on his mind. He finally opened up and admitted that he had been considering proposing to me before this whole mess happened. The strain of the past few weeks had made him second-guess if now was the right time. I was stunned. I had no idea he had been thinking about marriage. We talked about our future, and while we both agreed that we saw each other in it, we also acknowledged that we had some things to work on before taking that next step. It was a mature and honest conversation, and it brought us closer together, even though it meant putting off an engagement. My boyfriend's selfishness in bed showed no end, so I confronted him and he exploded. His secret chats were the last straw, and I just smiled as he begged. My boyfriend, 23-year-old male, and I, 24-year-old female, started hooking up 2 months ago, but we still have not had penetrative intimacy. We engage in foreplay activities like grinding and making out. At the beginning, he attempted to go down on me for a while, but I take a long time to orgasm, so I made him stop to avoid hurting his jaw. He went down on me for about 10 to 20 minutes. After that, each time we hooked up, he would ask me for a BJ, and I would comply. I performed deep throat on him, and even swallowed his release every time. I would compliment his weenie and release and even tell him how good they tasted, etc. Although everyone knows that release does not taste like candy and tastes more like release. I was just so into him that the taste did not matter to me, and I liked it because it came from him. After that, he did not go down on me again, and whenever I asked him to, he would refuse and say that I am too wet down there and that he does not like it. I started giving him fewer BJ, which upset him. Well, recently I was literally dry down there and asked him to go down on me. He told me that the truth is that down there I taste like dirty soup water. I tasted myself and I feel like it's fine and there's no strong smell or anything. It's just salty. Plus, I shower quite regularly and maintain good hygiene. I talked to him and he agreed to try it again and attempt to perform oral intimacy on me. But immediately after putting his tongue, he started almost gagging, looked disgusted, etc. I do not understand why, as he is just licking it and not taking it into his mouth. The other problem is that I also feel like he gives me quite rude remarks. For example, when he saw my body, he told me that I have 3 layers of fat. I gained weight as part of eating disorder recovery and recently started dieting and exercising to lose it. That my body part color is weird because they are beige, not brown or pink, and that my breasts are saggy. I have larger breasts, so they are naturally more saggy than smaller breasts. When I told him that his comments were hurtful, he told me that I am too sensitive and dramatic and that I cannot take a joke. Other times, he tells me that I should admire him for his honesty. Other than that, he's a great boyfriend, and I like the way he makes me feel. So what do I do, Reddit? Also, I am showing him this thread. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Other than that, he's a great boyfriend needs to be a flare option in this subreddit. OP, your list of negative behaviors is too extensive for any positive qualities to balance it out. This is not the man for you. Go find someone who appreciates your amazing body part. Comment 2. You're not too sensitive. Who even knows what dirty soup water tastes like? But female genitalia tastes great. Even if it did not, he's being selfish. 10 to 20 minutes is not too long. And lastly, he's not a gift from God to women. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a wild week, and I've got some updates that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So, after I showed my boyfriend the thread, things got heated. He was mad that I'd shared our private life with strangers, but I reminded him that I was seeking advice because I felt unheard. He apologized for his reaction and promised to work on being more considerate of my feelings. That was a good start, I guess. But then, just a couple of days later, we had another incident. We were at his place, watching a movie, and things started to get a little hot and heavy. I thought maybe this time, things would be different, but nope. He asked for a BJ again, and I was hesitant, but went along with it. Afterward, I brought up the idea of him returning the favor, and he actually agreed this time. I was shocked but hopeful. However, as soon as he got close, he made a face and backed off. He said he just couldn't do it and that I shouldn't pressure him into things he's not comfortable with. I was hurt and frustrated. I mean, I've been accommodating his needs, but mine were being ignored. We had a big fight about it. I told him that a relationship is a two-way street and that I felt like I was on a one-way road to nowhere. He got defensive, saying that I was making him out to be the bad guy when he was just being honest about his preferences. Remember how I mentioned he made rude remarks about my body? Well, it turns out he's been talking to his friends about our intimacy life, including those comments. I found out because one of his friends, who I thought was also a friend of mine, let it slip. She was like, "Oh, so you're trying to work on those 3 layers he mentioned." I was mortified and confronted him about it. He tried to brush it off, saying that guys talk and it wasn't a big deal. But to me, it was a huge betrayal of trust. I couldn't believe he'd share something so personal and hurtful with his friends. Amidst all this drama, I started to reflect on our relationship. I realized that he's always been a bit self-centered. Like he's the kind of guy who loves to be the center of attention and gets upset if things don't go his way. I remembered how, at his birthday party last year, he got annoyed when his friends started talking to me more than him. He's always had this need to be the most important person in the room. And then there's me, always trying to please him, even when it's at my own expense. I've been the one to initiate most of our dates, and I'm always the one apologizing first after a fight, even when it's not my fault. But the real jaw-dropper came when I was at his place again, and his phone buzzed with a text. He was in the shower, and I saw the preview of the message light up from where I was sitting. It was from a girl, and it said, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait for next time." My heart sank. I wasn't snooping, but I couldn't unsee it. When he came out, I confronted him about the message. He tried to play it off as a joke from a coworker, but I wasn't buying it. I demanded to see the conversation, and after a lot of back and forth, he showed me. It was clear from their messages that he'd been seeing this girl behind my back for who knows how long. I was furious and heartbroken. All this time, he'd been criticizing me, making me feel less than, and he was the one being unfaithful. I told him it was over, and I left. I haven't spoken to him since. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.